Hi to all of our MACPA listeners, and good afternoon. Welcome to today's vic.ai panel webinar, The New Survival Kit, AI is Your First Aid. I'm Rachel Schwartz from vic.ai. Welcome, and we're very thrilled to have you with us today. So I think it comes as no surprise that the accounting industry is going through a lot of change, more rapidly than ever before due to COVID-19 in particular. And against this backdrop, we wanted to discuss how adopting new technologies that help accounting firms modernize their practice and drive stronger productivity, improve workflow and processes can no longer be considered just nice to haves. And the technologies we're talking about today, in particular, are automation and AI, artificial intelligence. And we want to have a conversation around why these technologies are such an indispensable part of your day-to-day survival toolkit. You know, in a world where remote accounting teams are the new normal, things in your firm that previously were going to take weeks and maybe even months are happening now. And everyone needs the best tools and technology stack possible to improve their accuracy, save time, and lower the cost of doing business. So with that, I am very excited to have some of the top leading experts from the accounting industry joining us today on our panel. And they include David Bergstein from Bergstein CPA, Mike Saperstein with Rosen, Saperstein and Friedlander, Alexandra August from vic.ai, and also from vic.ai, Todd Robinson. So I'd like to ask our panelists to just briefly go around and introduce yourselves. If you could tell us a little bit about your role in the business and like what areas of business you touch, that'd be really great. So I'll throw to call somebody, I'll throw Mike.
Hi, so Mike Saperstein. I've been in this industry about a little over 10 years, though I did grow up in it with my father, obviously, or my father started a business, 41 years ago and joined about 10 years ago. I started off in the A&A department preparing financial statements, and have since transitioned into more of our consulting practice, and I've recently been placed in charge of our client accounting and advisory services department, where we are doing a complete overhaul and implementing a lot more AI than we've ever used before.
Excellent. David?
Thank you for having me as part of this panel. I appreciate it. I like to consider myself a millennial in a baby boomer's body, which means I've been an accountant for a real long time. I've done everything there is that you could do as an accountant CPA, from private accounting, working in public accounting, being an IRS agent, which people don't like to hear me say, being a teacher, and being a consultant, working for software vendors in various positions over the years. And now I'm back to my roots. I'm back to being an independent CPA, where my role is I'm an author, I'm a blogger, I'm an advisor to other CPA firms to help them adopt automation, because I think it's all about change and relearning at this point. And in my spare time, when I'm not trying to sprout some of the knowledge I have, I am a pickleball player, and that's something accountants should do to get outside and get away from their office. Thank you.
Hey, David, you didn't happen to help invent the abacus, did you? Any chance?
No, but I did work with what we call pencils here, and I have pencils, and I do sell these pocket protectors that I don't need on the side anymore.
Thanks so much, David. So Alexandra, how about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. My name is Alexandra August. I'm a CPA, and I work at vic.ai. And essentially what I do at vic.ai is I'm the Director of Business Development. So I focus on helping firms expand and understand how they can fit in our product, and kind of help them build that out to make it as easy and efficient as possible in terms of helping them grow their firm. So it's a new role that I've come into. I joined in March, I believe, and prior to that, I was at PwC as an IT auditor, and I was at EY doing Oracle Cloud implementation. So I'm a little bit newer to the industry, but very excited and very into AI and getting the word out on how great it really is and the impact it can have. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Todd Robinson.
All right, thank you. Well, Alexander is a 40 under 40 rising star in the accounting profession. And I could tease David because we go way back. But anyhow, my name's Todd Robinson. I'm the head of strategic accounts for vic.ai. I've been with the company for almost a year now. And I've held similar positions with other technology vendors in the space like XCM Solutions, Intuit, Sage, and Thomson Reuters. So when it comes to the technology, I like to say I know a little about a lot, and more importantly, I know how firms operate and run their businesses on a daily basis and how best to apply that technology to help them and allow them to become more efficient. And AI is definitely going to pioneer that. So it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. So kind of on that, before we go in, start having a conversation about AI, I think it really begs the question, what is AI automation? And Todd, as one of our foremost authorities, I think it would be great if you could give us a little context there.
I get a great starting question, and I thank you for that. I appreciate it. You know, one thing that I've learned since I've started with vic.ai is there's still a lot of education around what AI and machine learning means to the accounting profession and what can it potentially solve for. And I could tell you right now, I think it's extremely underrated in the profession, so there's nowhere to go but up. But I'll back up even a little bit further. And when we start to think about AI and machine learning, I'm going to, you know, the first thing that comes to my mind is obviously the Hollywood portrayal of it, right? From the Terminator and Skynet being the AI and attempting to take over the world to maybe a more modern version of, you know, like Tony Stark and Iron Man and Jarvis, which was the AI that helped Iron Man save the world and that sort of thing, to, you know, HAL 9000. I mean, AI has been around for a very long time. And so fast forward to the world we live in today and how we might be using AI in our daily lives. And the fact of the matter is we're using it. You might not know you're using it. And the best way to describe it or think about it is like an Alexa that's in your home, or streaming services that you might subscribe to, like Spotify or Hulu or Netflix or Amazon Prime. And you know, those services have AI built into, you know, their platforms. And the AI, you know, starts to learn based off of your listening or viewing habits, and it makes predictions on songs that you might like to listen to or upcoming shows that might be of interest to you. And that's just one example of modern day AI happening behind the scenes. There's other applications of it as well, like Waze. If you use Waze, a transportation app to get you from point A to point B, you know, there's hundreds, if not thousands of users that are driving along the same route that you are. And there's AI built into that platform, monitoring the traffic patterns of those users to make predictions back to you for a much faster route to get you from point A to point B. And so, you know, if it could get you there faster, the AI's done its job. Now, apply that to the accounting profession. And this is exactly what vic.ai is building and what we hope to solve for. And we're going to do it in small chunks, because you can't turn AI on overnight. It's not like a light switch that you could just turn on and it's on constantly. And we all know Rome was not built overnight either. And so AI, you know, needs to grow and it needs to learn. And over a longer period of time, it's going to get more automated for you, and your people are going to become more efficient as a result of that. And we're solving for that in the accounting bookkeeping space at a transactional level right now. And that's what we're looking to solve for and how we could best apply it to the accounting profession. So I hope that answers your question and is a good description of from Hollywood's portrayal to modern day use and how it's how we could apply it to the accounting profession.
Awesome. No, that's very helpful. And so I think then that kicks off into, you know, I'd like to ask David and Mike especially, you know, how does AI and automation, how is that fitting into your firm or your client's firm strategies right now? And why don't I start with David?
I'm a true believer that AI is going to change the face of the accounting profession so that we become business coaches and advisors to our clients to make their processes more efficient. Again, now, I don't interface to I have a small practice interface with a couple clients, but I'm interfacing more with CPAs like Mike and saying, what's your process? How you doing? And if you can eliminate data entry, have automation and have data analysis, put out information on the other end, then Mike can get more money from his clients for advising them. And I'm going to say one last thing, I'll shut up so I don't monopolize this. I believe that client accounting and advisory services is the most fundamental thing that an accounting firm can do. Because if you want business clients, you don't do tax returns separately. You only do tax returns from accounting systems. And AI, CPA, independence, you're not supposed to do consulting and auditing. So where does your consulting and advisory service come? Get involved with your clients up front. Look at their accounting system, automate it, and then they offer different levels of service from transactional to controller to CFO. What's the difference? The higher level, the more you charge them, but also the more times you see them. I don't believe any small business really needs to do accounting anymore if you automate it. And Mike sends his group out there of app specialists to train them. And then the business owner can work on the business instead of in the business. That's my short Brooklyn answer.
No, that's well said, David. Yeah, it's the journey into AI for our firm started maybe somewhere in the 5 to 10 year range. One of our partners attended a tech seminar, and they debuted Watson preparing an audit and a tax return at that seminar. And he came back, and I remember sitting in his office, and he said, we've got to figure something out because we're about to have first year accountants reviewing audits and reviewing tax returns, as this kind of spreads out into the world. Luckily for us, we've built the firm with an advisory practice in mind. So that very much goes well. But one of the things that we recognized at that point and over the last several years is we're losing time to human processes. And it's hurting our ability to service our customers. So we kind of took a look around the room and said, let's just look at every process we have internally. Okay, what can we do that can speed that process up? And while not everything went this way, ultimately a lot of processes we've learned over the last several years, we can put in various types of AI or robotic process automation to allow us to do that. One would be, an engagement letter process we can automate to some degree. Heck, even the preparation, I said it earlier, I mentioned Watson did a tax return. We're going up against firms right now that are pitching the tax prep from an automation standpoint. We couldn't compete with those bids. So now we're looking at some software that we can automate some of our tax prep. We still have the humans reviewing and doing it all, but at the end of the day, it's all about minimizing the time to do remedial tasks, bringing some time back into your day to focus on the items that matter the most. And to the extent that we can do that for our clients, the better off they are, the better off we are. And quite frankly, I think the better off their customers ultimately are. So it's really a win-win-win is the way I look at all this.
Oh, that's really helpful. And I mean, like Alexander, for example, I know that you've seen a lot with the firms that you're working with. What are some ways that you see them saving time using AI automation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So specifically with something like vic.ai, where we're going in and doing that data entry, it's been really interesting to see kind of the shift from when I came in March even to right now, the progress that's happening. People generally come in, they bring their loads of invoices in and they get onto the platform. And right now, the AI has a learning curve. And so they come in and they're like, hey, this light switch, they think it's a light switch. They're like, this isn't happening for me. Why isn't it happening? So the thing to keep in mind is that you come in, it learns, and then it progresses. So we're in the progress of progressing everyone in terms of getting to that full automation point. And right now we're at automation. We're in beta of our autopilot, and it's been really exciting to see how these clients have gone from 0% automation where they're going in and having to review everything, to the point where they're at like 30 to 50 to 70 to 80% automated for certain clients. So we see a lot of people using this in that way and kind of going in and saying, hey, what are some of the mundane practices that we have to do on a daily basis? And how can I get that onto some sort of platform to help me make that a little bit more efficient? So my experience is obviously directly with the AP processing, but I have clients that talk about, similar to what Mike was saying, the tax software. They talk about, hey, like, this is what vic.ai does. This is what our tax software does. Like, do you know of any other AIs that can help me alleviate like this pain and this pain? So it's really interesting to see how people are starting to get that like full picture focus in terms of where in my firm can I make this happen, and where can I make my processes better and faster, more efficient, to be able to focus on those advisory services, or even to for a lot of firms, add just more clients to our AP processing. You know, there's a lot of different things that can happen there, but it's really interesting to see it across the board.
Yeah, it's great that you know, people are looking for so many ways to simplify essentially their business. And you know, I'm curious, based on what is happening with COVID-19. You know, it seems like that might have been the catalyst for a lot of firms. But I'm curious for David, do you think that's something that's really pushed firms to adopt technologies that they previously hadn't even considered?
Well, no doubt COVID has changed the name of the game. The pandemic has caused people not to congregate. I don't see how anybody can go to an office in New York on the 35th floor with thousands of people in a building and be efficient if they can only allow 2 people on the elevator. So firms have had to adopt and adapt very quickly. I think this is going to change the nature of the landscape going forward. I talked to a COO up at a firm in the New England area where they're now rethinking their strategy. Instead of having 2 offices or 1 large office, maybe 5 or 6 offices spread out over the New England area, so you can walk in, walk out, yet most people will work from home. This pandemic has changed drastically what people will do in the future. That doesn't mean offices are going away, but less real estate might be needed and more people will be efficient. We're collaborating today, for, 5 of us right here to a group of people watching, and it's making life different. And one thing that Alexandra said, and the same thing Mike said, since I've been around a while, tax automation has really come first, especially way back when. Nobody wanted to e-file. Everybody was picking the exception. We're not going to e-file a tax return. Now no one would not file e-file a tax return. Scan and order flow, whatever you want to call it, from each of the different products, reading OCRs. That was the start of machine learning and artificial intelligence in the tax space. But I think as we get down, and I'll go back to it again because I'm going to harp on this forever. I think as we go back to the beginning, more and more business tax returns will be done in the accounting software. Everything will be put together because the information will all be identified through artificial intelligence as machine learning. And actually, there's an article that I just read. I'll just say it. This is from Citric believe that dedicated robot AI trainer roles will be needed in the future workplace because AI only learns what it's programmed to learn, and it only gets smarter when the robot human interface says this is where it has to go. So you're going to see a lot of changes going forward.
Got it. And I mean, Mike, you were saying that, some of your AI, adoption was 5+ years in the works, more or less. So, was COVID-19 something that pushed you guys over the edge? I mean, how did that happen so that it happened now?
No, it's funny. I think COVID has certainly had an effect, but we actually went as a firm to, everyone was provided laptops from the day I started with the firm, which was 10 years ago. So they'd already had them prior to that. And we've really moved all of our programs to the cloud over the last, say, 3 to 4 years. So we were already prepared, for something like this to happen. Not like we were thinking about it, but once it happened, we didn't miss a beat from the standpoint of how do we provide access to our systems for our people, right? But what I think, and on top of that, we've also, we added a business intelligence intern who's really spending a lot of time in BI. We added that about 2 years ago, and he recently just came on board as a full-time person. And his focus primarily has been connecting a lot of our systems to get us better data and better, feed some data from one system into another so we don't have to do it manually. We're now going to be rolling some of that out to some clients as another way of doing it. But I think what ultimately led to us providing or going the AI route for the CAS department was it's a very hard thing to scale when you're just providing, when it's just a human doing it and recording every transaction. COVID really did affect that ability. Clients are saying to it, we're saying, we don't want you on site. Our people were saying, I don't want to go on site. How do we provide a solution? So we've definitely converted some clients from that were still in the legacy, QuickBooks Enterprise, and we've converted a lot of those to the online version. And I think that it just sped it up more than anything else. I think we were already headed this direction. We weren't too far, and I think it provided some time and some oomph, to go at it full on.
Yeah, that's interesting. And obviously the impact on CAS. Todd, from your end, what have you been seeing with all accounting firms, and especially those for their CAS departments?
Well, I mean, the pandemic has definitely, I think, kind of forced firms into obviously reevaluating things and reprioritizing things, for sure, no doubt about it. They've also been inundated with, the PPP, and loan forgiveness programs, and helping their clients out in that way as well. But I think there's a silver lining in this, and a lot of the conversations that I've been having with firms, especially on the CAS side of their business, is they're actually experiencing an uptick, in business and the opportunities that are out there. I mean, I think a lot of these businesses had to make decisions in regards to their staffing needs, and they might have had to let go of a full-time bookkeeper or a full-time accounts payable clerk or a controller. And, the business hasn't closed. They still need that work to get done, but now they've got to outsource it. And they call a firm like Mike's for help there. And I see a silver lining in that. And then ultimately, you're going to need technology there internally to support you, to support the firm. I say this all the time. There's really just, in my mind, there's two ways to grow a business, especially in a CAS. One, you either have to throw more people at it to do more work, because there's only so much time in the day, or you need to partner with the right technology and your current existing resources, right? And I'll just kind of close with saying this. I read a recent article from the Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella, recently, who said they've seen more technology adoption in the past 6 months than they were expecting over the course of the next 4 years from this pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And then one more shout out to Forbes. I read an article back in April about the top 25 technology trends that are going to continue to shape this new decade that we're in. And number one, no surprise to me, is obviously AI and machine learning. And going back to David's initial point about automation is nothing new to the accounting profession, right? And there's been a lot of great applications out there that have been providing automation. I'm going to put that in quotes, okay, because it's an overused word in the profession, right? And even RPA, robotic process automation, which is the next level up, which solves, for completing a particular task. And a lot of those applications, we all know, can be heavily dependent on OCR, scan and fill, and heavily rules-based. And we all know it can only technology can only capture so much of that information, and those rules break down. But AI and machine learning is the next level up, and there is no doubt it's going to continue to shape this new decade that we're in. And you're going to be way behind the 8 ball if you don't embrace it sooner than later, like Mike's done at his firm. And so that's enough from my perspective and point of view.
Now I got your definition, because you put it in place from automation to RPA to the machines actually thinking because they have enough information. And that's why when Mike says his firm just jumped into it, there are the smart firms that were already doing the automation and just taking one step at a time and moving, and we're all in place. And there's the firms that said, let's wait 5 more years. And all of a sudden, those are the firms that are trying to sell themselves or merge into somebody else that has the technology so the partners can fund their retirement. So it's
Well,
kind of,
you know, Mike's firm, because he's adopting it now, when that other firm goes to adopt it, Mike's going to be at 100% automation. That other firm's going to be starting down in the 0 to 30% range. And it's going to take them just as the same amount of time to ramp up to 100% automation as well. Okay. And so there's a long-term investment into this, and there's going to be a greater ROI as a result of, you know, those firms being on an AI platform from inception. And so, you know, now I'm in sales, so I don't want it to sound cheesy, but the sooner you get started, the better for those reasons alone.
Yeah, and I want to just interject quickly to kind of segue into, I think, an important question that you guys are talking around, which is, you know, I think there's a lot of misconceptions sometimes about AI. I think that sometimes an issue for why a firm might not have yet started looking or figured out maybe how to adopt it yet is because they don't really understand the necessity and they don't really understand the technology at large. So, you know, like Mike, for example, as you know, when you were looking at to adopt different solutions, you know, what did you come across folks in your firm who had a misconception of what AI is or what it was going to do, and kind of how did you have to work to explain that and give them reassurance?
So that's a good question. It's interesting. So we're at our firm is transitioning a little bit. We have some of the original founders are still here, but we have a younger group of partners that are now running the firm. And when you talk to them, the younger group, they get the AI, they get robotic process automation, they understand the benefits and the need to move in that direction. So it wasn't much of a sell for them. When I'm talking to, you know, some of the Mr. Rose and Mr. Saperstein, they did not understand it at all. Over the last 3 or so months, as I've been, you know, updating them on the different softwares I was looking at and ultimately chose, I think they now understand that, wait, you don't need a person to enter every invoice. You don't need a person to journalize every what? They're starting to understand it now, and they really see the benefits. And you know, while they're not going to benefit too much, you know, from it as they're at the tail end of their careers, they're very excited that the younger generation at our firm has embraced it and is looking to go forward with it. And it's interesting. We've hired some interns that have come in and asked about it. In their interviews, you know, are we using AI? Are we doing it? Are there opportunities for us? And one of our recent hires, she's going to be kind of splitting her time between our Power BI team and our just our general tax and accounting departments, so she can get kind of a more well-rounded experience. But that's really just the way the firm's going.
That's very cool. And, you know, Todd earlier was saying something about, you know, ramping up with AI and that, you know, those who aren't doing it today are really going to be left behind. And, you know, Alexandra, I know you're working with firms like on a daily basis, and, you know, sometimes they come to you similarly with some misconceptions about AI. Like, what do you tell them? How do you kind of reassure them?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying this is a large misconception that I've seen throughout like the process of firms coming on and using AI. Is they really have no idea what it entails or what it's going to do for them. So in terms of, you know, helping them kind of alleviate their risk, you know, with understanding what's going on, what I tend to tell them is, you know, you have to think about it like Todd was mentioning. It's a long-term investment. Yes, it's not tomorrow going to do everything for you, but you know, it's going to get to a point where it's learning your processes and it's taking the time to make sure that it has that confidence and that accuracy, so that when you do get to the full automation point, you can have the confidence in the system that, you know, everything coming out of it is correct, and everything that's coming out in your automation, when you get to that automation, is exactly what you need it to be able to continue to expand. So just reassuring them that, you know, what's coming out of the system is going to be what you expect, but also making sure that expectation setting is going along with that is really vital, because, you know, a big thing that I've noticed and something that I think we've learned at Vic is people come in and they're really excited to use AI in general. And again, they don't really understand what it is. So they come in and then they get really frustrated and they're like, hey, like, why isn't this working for me? Why isn't this working? I thought, you know, I was going to come in and my stuff was going to be automated, even if it was in like 2 months, you know, and that's just not the case. So making sure as people are going through with this journey in AI and understanding what it is, that they have the proper expectations, I think is something to really emphasize as you're doing this across your firm.
Yeah, and David, I think we had talked about this like once upon a time, and you know, I'd love to hear your take on it. You know, I think it's level setting with clients more generally across like any technology adoption, but you know, how do you go about setting the proper expectations with your clients or anybody you're consulting with about what's going to be involved with technology adoption?
Well, that's a great question, and I guess tell them what they're doing, they do it. Now I'm only kidding. You know, we're talking to CPAs and accountants. They are considered highly trusted advisors. And when we talk to our clients, we really have to ask them the questions about what's keeping them up at night. What would they like to do better? How can we help them? So it's more about asking the right questions, leveling the field. And it's not even talking about AI. It's not even talking about automation. It's talking about you as a business person. I'm an accountant. I am here to make you more liquid, solvent, profitable, advise you, coach you. You know, tell me a little bit about what's bothering you. You know, you're worried about your future. You're worried about putting money into a retirement plan. Come to Mike Saperstein. We'll help you. But what we got to do is we got to take away some of that mess that you're doing and change how you're doing it. We can do that because we're no longer using paper and pencil. It's technology today. So I'm leaving out the AI, the whatever. We're here as an accounting firm to help you. Let me show you how we can help you. What are you doing now? What's your process when you make a sale? You know, I always use this example. If you're an HVAC contractor, when you go out to do an estimate, do you take a paper and pencil with you? Or do you take a tablet so that when you're through doing it, you can press the button and give them the estimate and get the job before somebody else? That's not teaching them how to do accounting. That's the accounting firm helping them establish processes in a form that when they press a button, that form becomes a sales invoice. It's true that what's kind of cool, and when you asked Mike the question before, you know, what goes on at a firm, again, since I'm a little bit older, not necessarily wiser, when you go to an accounting firm, they believe in the Sally principle. Same as last year. This is what we did. We took out the files. And it's only because I'm now reinventing myself as the chief innovation officer of a very 3-person small firm that I'm taking the time to say, wait a second, let's change what we're doing and it'll be more efficient, rather than saying, I got to get the payroll taxes done. I spoke to my client this morning. He's giving me the September payroll. I got to get it done. I'm giving it to someone else to do, and I'm working on the thing. What's kind of interesting, I'm teaching college adjunct professor. I'm going through a digital professor certification. And now I'm learning all about how to do and produce my own videos, screencast, Yahoo. I got my own Yahoo channel now. And if the accountants would take the time to do it, and teaching with this teaching online, it's forced everyone to go from face-to-face to online. There's a universal design method. You got to adopt the change. Otherwise, students aren't going to be engaged and they're not going to learn. So it's just, you go to your accountant, you talk to them, and if your person, I'm sure I'll go back to Mike. Why do people change when he talks to them? Because they don't want someone in the office and they want someone to help them, and that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
David, I gotta tell you, Sally is persona non grata at our firm. We have actually outlawed the usage of that term because we want our people thinking about, okay, so great, that's how we did it before, but does that mean it's the best way? And sometimes it may be, but oftentimes it's not, and oftentimes circumstances change, and it was the right way to do it at that time, but it's no longer the right way to do it. There are better solutions. Yeah. Had to get that dig in on with Sally, because I heard that phrase a lot in my first 6 years, and I've not heard it too often recently.
So kind of to that point, just name for me a couple of things, but like what roles are technology playing in like Mike helping your staff adjust to the new normal of remote work? Like what are some of the technologies you're leveraging to make it easier to work, like not just in the new normal, but also just like a more modern practice?
Yeah. So I mean, it's the first and foremost, moving to cloud-based products is a must. I think, if you haven't learned it already, look, people aren't going into the office. I've been going in every day since, say, the end of June, and there's the same 8 to 10 people here every single day or less. People aren't, and how will that change? So if we weren't cloud-based, we would have been in trouble. As we're seeing with several of our clients, weren't cloud-based, but their businesses still needed to operate. What did they do? So that was the first part. And I know that's not necessarily AI related, but it's kind of that first step. Because if you can't work from anywhere and you have to be at a certain location, that's going to limit your efficiencies and your effectiveness. From there, I've mentioned a little bit, we've done spent a lot of time in Power BI, and various other APIs, getting our systems to talk to one another. So that was the first place. But really, the CAS group is going to be the first group in our firm to go to a almost fully automated AI-based process where we're utilizing, I'm not sure if I can say this, but we're utilizing vic.ai and a bill.com for the AP and bill paying piece. And then we're using a receipt bank for expense reporting and other items that a lot of our clients need. And one of the big things that our clients are saying to us, look, margins are shrinking across a lot of industries, not just because of COVID, but it was happening kind of prior to this year. Things are, business is just more expensive than it used to be. So we had to look at ways that we could, not necessarily replace a person at their company, because we don't necessarily always want to do that. But maybe there's a way that we can take 10% or say 80% of their day, get rid of that so they don't have to do that, and free them up to work on other areas of the firm. Or in the situation where, maybe you don't need that extra person in the accounting department, or there's 2 extra people. There are softwares out there that can be leveraged to create that efficiency at a much more a much better price point, I should say. And at the end of the day, that's important to our clients.
Yeah, I think this is all about really finding the tools to make somebody more productive with their day, so that they can reinvest their time. We're not getting rid of them. We're just letting them work harder on things that are going to, help the business grow a lot faster. That I think is really the whole point with all of these technologies. David, what about yourself? I know that even in a 3-person firm, you guys were probably all reasonably working remote. Where are you kind of using technology in terms of helping your staff continue with their work during this time?
It's really the same principles that as Mike's saying. It's kind of interesting. You mentioned bill.com, receipt bank, vic.ai. I look at Power BI, which I really like because it's part of the Microsoft suite. But you didn't mention the center of what we're really doing. If we're working tax and we want to be remotely, we want to pull the data in. If we're working accounting, there's always an accounting package or tax package up front. So in reality, what we're doing today as we're using technology, and I'm using actually Teams and Zoom, why Teams? Because it's part of Office 365, it's thrown in there. We all choose an anchor platform. We don't really think about that, but all these years in accounting, we choose a main tool. I'll go back to Todd's early days when he was a baby, and it was Thompson or CCH or Intuit, and today we're picking a client accounting services anchor platform, and how can we make it automated, and how can we use artificial intelligence to cut down and save that business client that Mike's talking about time. So yeah, they're not paying someone, but Mike's group is doing it now. So we're all doing the same thing. Kind of interesting, I went through a webinar the other day I attended on top tech trends. When we talk about automation, everything is going to remote office place now. even HR, think about that. You can't go into the office. How can you see the HR person? You can't go into the doctor. How can everybody's filling out online. And even employee benefits now are automated through artificial intelligence and collaborative with people. So, it doesn't matter how large you are, how small. I look at a CPA firm with 3 to 10 people, and that's the bulk of the CPA firms out there as a speedboat. They can adopt artificial intelligence and move like that. The larger firms, they're ocean liners. They can't turn as fast. They're more Titanic in nature. They have to go through more levels of decision. So the faster you adopt and change, but don't just rush into it. Before you choose a platform, have a game plan, have a written plan, have a checklist on what you're trying to accomplish. And I'm sure Mike's gone through this in the firm when they're evaluating software. We need the software to be able to, this is what we do manually. How can we automate it? And can we get this with package A, package B? I'm sure that's the case.
So you're making me laugh because that's kind of, I almost made that enormous mistake that you're just talking about. And I don't even know if you know it, but I think you're one of the ones that saved me from making it. When I first started this process, I didn't really know what softwares were out there. Our managing partner who gave me the opportunity said, mentioned a software who I'm not going to mention here as something to just kind of start out and look at. And I did a lot of the demos and talked to them a lot and got really, really high on this product. And I ultimately pitched it back as the one that I wanted to go with. And I got challenged really, really hard, unsuspectingly, by our managing partner. I ended up going back to the drawing board. And one of the first things I did was I reached out to David and I reached out to another industry expert and got a lot of information that I wasn't aware of. And ultimately didn't go with that initial option and went with the options that I previously mentioned because I started asking the right questions and getting the right answer, the answers that I really needed to hear, not just what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, I think this is so important. And, Todd, I'd be curious to get your take because, I think that sometimes people get like into the hype of things like AI and they're like, oh yeah, I want to adopt AI. And like, believe me, it's like, we want to help you adopt AI, but we want you to know, like you come to us and tell us, what's the challenge you're actually trying to solve for first. It's like, you got to put the horse before the cart. So, Todd, what do you find are the business problems that people are trying to solve with AI? Like, how do they go about, narrowing down what their actual problem is?
Great question. I think a lot of probing questions for starters, but I don't think they really know right away. I could tell you in the discussions that I have, and I ask probably 6 of the same repeatable questions over and over again. How many clients do you have? How many invoices are you processing? How much time is it taking you? What are the services? Half the time I get crickets, and like the firms just don't know. I think they have a general idea of just how much business, they have coming in and how busy their people are and how much, is getting processed. But when you start to ask them about kind of, more specific numbers, they just don't know. So one of the biggest takeaways in all my calls is, for a call to action is like, I'm going to give you homework. Like, you need to know this stuff. And frankly, I can't help you without knowing some of these statistics, and it's got, we could partner with one another, but we got to help one another as well at the same time. And so that's been a really eye-opening experience, not only just for me, but I think for a lot of the firms I've visited with, and then based on that, if they don't know those answers, they don't really know what, they don't know what they're missing out on or areas where they can improve upon and things like that. They really don't know if their team is operating as efficiently as it can. So it's going to be a great experience and good homework for them to just go through this process. Now, when we get that started, we'll uncover a lot of needs and objectives, okay? And then ultimately, vic.ai is going to be able to help solve for some of that. So we'll eventually become a part of that technology stack, and then that requires some further, evaluation, at that point as well. So I hope that kind of directly answers what you're asking and makes sense, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, understanding the business value of AI is obviously so important for accounting firms. It's really the first step. And David, I think you had even mentioned that closer to the beginning of our chat. But I'm curious, Mike, for example, what do you think are going to be the benefits of being an early adopter of AI and automation? Like, what's the business value there? Like, are you looking to leverage this as a form of differentiation from your competition, from everything from like branding to obviously like actual in practice? How do you see, being an early adopter helping the firm out?
Well, if nothing else, it gives us a head start. It allows us to get our heads, and ourselves into the technology, understanding how it works, where the hangups can be, so that we can better advise our clients and better prepare the clients for the process and so on. But more than that, it's, I think the way that we're implementing it for client accounting services, for what we're calling virtual back office, just off the bat, it's going to provide clients with better information, more very real-time information. I mean, one of the biggest frustrations I get from business owners is I can't get I don't know what my business is doing at any time. I ask for a report and it takes me 3 days to get it, or, it's still waiting on, 50 sales invoices to be processed and, a bunch of AP. So I never know what my real-time information is. So we've taken a deep dive into various dashboards and things that we can utilize to create those for clients. And I think AI allows us, if you're able to process transactions faster, you're looking at your data in a much more of a real-time component. But, the way that we're utilizing this is one of the things that, unlike most accountants, I don't care so much about what happened last year. It's important to a degree, but it's really not that important to the business owner. It's happened, it's over, it's done with. What I really care about and what my clients really care about is what are we doing in the future? How are we fixing, issues? How are we providing solutions to clients? How are we able to do this? So by getting into the software earlier, it's the amount of articles, for instance, and information I've been able to take, read about in the AI and products in the AI has grown probably 400% over the last 3 months. So let's take that out 3 years from now. How much deeper in am I going to be? And is our firm going to be than the firm that waits 3 to 5 years to begin diving into this? We're going to be looking at, the next level of solutions that are on the horizon and how we can potentially leverage those to solve whatever the problem is that we have at that point in time. So, I just don't, I think we've all kind of said it in one way or another, but if as a firm, you're not looking at it as a way to improve the product that you're providing to your clients, you need to be.
Yeah. And David, you've made your brand really on, I think, being an early adopter, a tech evangelist, figuring out how to differentiate yourself from the competition. How have you helped that, incorporated that aspect into your business? I think you're probably the only chief innovation officer just about I've heard of at an accounting firm.
Because I made the name up myself because it sounded good from a marketing approach. But everybody wants to be an early adopter. Your client doesn't care that you tell them you're an early adopter. And Mike really hit it on the head. And if I were at Mike's firm and I was the business development person trying to bring in new clients, or actually converting my tax clients, my once-a-year tax clients to monthly clients, I would go out to them and I would say exactly what he says, because I truly believe the future of accounting is about real-time accounting. It's no longer looking in the rearview mirror. It's real-time information. So if I were to go out to my existing clients that's not allowing me to use technology, I'd say, I use sample data from whatever vendor you're working with and say, let me show you how I can help you be more up to date and you're not doing anything. So when that sale comes in, or if you're a medical practice, whatever the practice is, you use that kind of example. Let me show you the dashboards I'm providing you when that register rings. And I like to use Dunkin' Donuts as an example, vanilla donuts, chocolate, whatever, because when the computer system's set up, that's real time in there. And if you show that client, boom, they can see what their gross profit is every day by pressing a button. hey, you can be my accountant because you're showing me. I just did something with a software vendor that came out with a business performance center. And I took all the customers and I set them up with their own chart. And I can see what I was getting each day in the client's restaurant versus the sales. And I knew who the best customers were on a regular basis and what they were buying. When Mike uses his Microsoft BI or any other intelligence tool that pulls that out, how could the prospect or client not utilize his services? We talk about, we are CPAs, and I heard this from another marketing person. We tell them we're honest, we're efficient, we're fast, we're technologically innovative, and that's why they choose us. That's not why they choose, because we're all saying the same thing. We're here because we want to solve your problems after you listen to them, but then show them that dashboard and show them how this is the process you're using now based on what you told me. Here's somebody we worked with, even though it's not real data, it's sample data. Here's what we can give to you once you set up through our process, and it's an onboarding period of 30 days, 60, 90. And we got these great tools that we're using. They don't care what the tools are. They just care results. I'm sorry I get so emphatic. I'm passionate about helping people in the accounting profession. I think accounting is a great profession, even though it gets knocked, because it's not about debits and credits anymore. It's about looking at things coming in, let's call it money in, and let's call it resources out, and being able to make decisions on those things. And teaching the college accounting class, they all come in, I hate accounting, it's math, I gotta do this. It's not about math, it's about recording, sorting, summarizing data automatically or with AI, and then helping people make decisions. That's the beauty of accounting.
I think you bring up a great point, and Mike mentioned it earlier. You've got these kids that are coming out of school and they're asking you about what kind of technologies you have in place at your firm, because especially if they went to school for a finance or accounting background or whatever. I remember taking accounting 101 and 201 many years ago, and there were no computers. It was a debit and credit ledger book basically, and I immediately knew then, no offense you guys, that I just didn't want to do that coming out of college, right? But fast forward 30 years, and these kids, they want that technology. They don't want to just be stuck doing heads down data entry, and that's really kind of what we're getting at here. And they want to be challenged. And they want to be given, the ability to grow and grow quickly within an organization, and where they can become more valuable. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see with this younger generation. And, the accounting profession's got to give them the tools to be able to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so kind of on like a parting question for the panel, and I'll start off with like Alexandra, but where do you ultimately see AI and automation taking the industry in the next year, the next 3 years, next 5 years? What's the direction?
Yeah, I think AI is going to change the industry pretty dramatically, honestly. And I think a lot of people would agree that a lot of this data entry and a lot of these tasks that people are doing on a daily basis right now, or even the tasks that they're sending offshore, those are all going to be automated. Just in every term of the business, either it's audit, tax, the AP processing, cash groups, what have you. There's going to be a software for everything at some point in time. And so it really just gets back to the fact of being on the front end of that digital transformation and making sure you are part of the change and not regretting that you weren't 5 years later. So that's kind of how I see this all rolling out. And I think I think everyone has really spoken to the fact that just making sure you're aware of it, and just having those resources to talk to, even if you're not. It's really about the mentality at the end of the day. If you want to make that change, you can do it, even if you don't feel like you have those technical capabilities yourself. Like all these AI companies, they all have resources for you, vic.ai included. Like I'm one of them. You can talk to them, and they're going to help you figure out how it works for you and how it can help your business. So just really making sure that everyone understands that it is happening. It's just a matter of whether or not you're part of it happening at the end of the day.
So I just think that at the end of the day, the profile of CPAs is actually going to change, I think, more than anything else. I think what where you see the introverted person who wants to sit at their desk, crunch their numbers, and spit out the stereotype that I've cringed at since I was a little kid, and was lucky enough to see a firm, to see my father who built a firm who would push the advisory services to the clients at a very early point when they founded the firm. You're going to see a lot of firms that are slow to adopt, kind of fall by the wayside. You're going to see some consolidation on that side, but then the firms that really embrace it, they're going to offer the compliance service because it's going to be, a means to an end. But I think the portion of their business that is compliance is probably going to shift a bit downward from where it is now. And the advisory side of the business, now that they have access to information and they can, you're already seeing it with some firms being able to implement some ERP type systems or other systems that have automation capabilities within them. Now they're getting better information. So now what do we do with this information? And I think that's what you're going to start seeing CPA firms hiring is people who can, think analytically, think critically, and understand, I don't see a problem. I see solutions. And that's the type of person I know that we're looking for. And I think that's the industry is going to start moving in that direction if they haven't already.
Alexandra and Mike pretty much said it all. We don't know what the future is going to bring. In the year 2035, there'll be new jobs, new technologies. But truly, when you get down to it, why does someone come to an accountant? They come for the compliance work, but they also want to protect their money, their resources, their assets. And who better trained than an accountant that's in school and learning all there is to know about trends, analysis, what happens if your cash flow goes down, how to improve your cash flow. That's what they want. So AI is here, and Alexandra said, every place is going to have AI for the function. So we're all going to be sitting in front of, right now I'm sitting in front of 3 monitors. We're going to be sitting in front of monitors. Mike's going to be there. His clients are going to be in different monitors, red, green, and yellow, know which ones need help, which ones don't, and appropriately take action. And they're going to pay their accountant to help them, because that's what it's all about.
I want to thank all of our amazing panelists really for the wealth of information that you guys have been sharing. So thanks, David, Mike, Alexandra, and Todd. We really appreciate you sharing what you've learned during these exceptional times and what our listeners need to be aware of as they go through this really rapid digital transformation. Because I think we all agree, it's not enough to just survive, but you need tools like AI and automation to really thrive with all the challenges that we're facing in the age of COVID. So thank you again, panelists, for the valuable knowledge, and thank you, our listeners, for joining us on today's webinar, The New Survival Kit, AI is Your First Aid. If there's anything we at vic.ai can do to support your AI automation journey, please feel free to reach out. We're here for you, and we wish you great success in taking your firm to the next level. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of the day. Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.